Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live stream about getting the right internship in responsible tech. If you don't know All Tech is Human, the organization, you really should. It's an organization of some 42,000 people spread across the world. We've got 10,000 active members on our Slack channel in 100 countries, and we are all working together to co-create a better tech future. One of the things I'm really proud to say that I do is I head the university network for All Tech is Human, and that is an affiliation of over 70 campuses with leaders on each of these campuses reaching out to students on their own campus to get them involved in activities to learn about some of the wicked social problems caused by tech, but also, just like the rest of the community, to begin to create solutions to those. And so I'm really happy to say that we have some amazing students from the All Tech is Human University Network on this call today to speak about internships they've had, actions that they're taking, things that they're learning about how to address the social problems that can sometimes be caused by technology. And so, without further ado, I want them to come on this call and introduce themselves to you. The interview today will be conducted by Nicole Cuneo, who is a graduate student at Princeton University, and she's going to introduce herself now. Nicole, thank you so much for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Nicole. I'm a PhD candidate at Princeton. I currently study the neurodiverse space, and I am so pleased to have a bunch of students on this call with me today. And we'd love to know where you guys are from. So please feel free to drop in the comments where you're from, where you're watching from. If you're from a university, we'd love to know who our viewers are from. And to start, let's just give a quick introduction from everybody, and then we'll jump into questions. Kriti, do you want to go first? Right, we're actually going to switch to Nat now. Sorry, I think we might have lost your audio a little, Kriti. Nat?
Hi, I'm Nat Welsh. I'm a senior at Wesleyan University, majoring in government, minoring in data analysis and social, cultural, and critical theory.
Awesome. And Katie?
Hi, I'm a senior at Colby College, and I'm majoring in computer science and minoring in creative writing.
Beautiful. And we see some Cal Poly in the comments. That's really great. If anyone else wants to write where they're watching from, I would love to hear about that. So before we get to the questions, I want to first just plug a few resources that the University Network is a part of. So I'm a social impact fellow from the University of Princeton at All Tech is Human. And we have really great resources for you. So as Steven previously mentioned, we have a Slack group where you can make connections and you can, there's lots of different discussions there. We also have a new responsible tech guide that just came out in 2024. And this gives you lots of information about joining the tech field or if you're curious about it, and also lots of different resources in that. And on a similar note, oh, sorry, Kriti, you're all good? Okay. And yeah, so let's actually take it to our students now and let's ask about their advice. So, Kriti, if you want to start, what industry did you get your internship in and how did you find your internship? Oh no, I think actually we might go to Nat. Nat, what internship did you have and what industry was that in?
I was at the Ideas program up in Boston with Harvard University and also Northeastern, and I guess the industry would be technology ethics.
Awesome. And what about you, Katie? So we have one technology ethics, and what were you in, Katie?
I was looking into the software development industry, and I was specifically looking for companies that I thought were doing good for the world and have meaningful work. So I worked as a developer for Ubongo, which is Africa's leading ed tech company.
Awesome. So to follow up on those two questions, what do you guys, let's think about search and how you found your internship. So what advice do you have on finding an internship or for someone who's looking to get one? And maybe let's couple that with when you were looking for internships, is there any courses you took that might have helped you on that search process? So really focusing on the search here. Nat, you want to begin?
Yeah, so my primary suggestion with finding internships would definitely be asking your professors if you're currently enrolled in college or grad school. I think professors can be super helpful because they know a lot of people in the field, and people in the field generally host certain programs or know other people in industry. When it comes to classes that are important to take, I think even having a slight technical background can certainly add an edge to your application, especially nowadays.
Awesome. Katie, did you find that you need a technical background for your internship, or what skills and courses really worked for you?
So I was working as a software developer, so I was definitely using my technical background for that. I think that the most important course to take for more software development roles would be data structures and algorithms, because they test that in interviews a lot, and also it just helps build your problem solving skills in general. And I found that for this internship, I needed to do a lot of like self-driven work and research to figure out some of the answers, and like a lot of internet research and figuring out for myself how to do things. And I think that the data structures and algorithms class teaches you that kind of skill, because you're forced to also like be researching how to solve certain problems in code.
Yeah, so just following up on that, did you notice that you needed those skills right away, like in your technical interview or your interview before, or even on the job search itself? Or did you kind of find that you needed those skills? Did you feel like you needed those skills more as you were in your internship?
Right away, I knew that it was going to be a pretty self-guided internship, because during the interview, they were talking about how like one of the benefits of this internship is that you can kind of go whichever way you want with it. And like, for Ubongo, which was the company that I was working at, they were hiring developers, but they didn't have like a particular engineering team. We were just helping them with problems that their company has. So I knew that I wasn't going to be having a lot of technical guidance. And then once I got into the internship and I was I had to pitch the idea and then work on the idea by myself. And I learned that to be able to do that, I just had to do a lot of independent research. So it kind of came up as I was working as well.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that. And what about you, Kriti? What do you have anything to add in terms of technical skills, or was your internship not as technical? Yeah.
All right. Hi.
Woohoo!
So I was actually working as a public policy associate for the nonprofit I was working for, which is Caragh. It was an AI nonprofit. And I don't have a technical background. I mean, I've taken classes to understand the basics of the code that go into machine learning models and LLMs, but at my core, I study economics and policy. So while I thought that having taken those one or two technical classes were important, it's definitely not necessary to only be majoring in like computer science or a related technical field to work in a responsible tech internship. And I actually felt that my perspective as someone who wasn't working on the back end code of it, and instead like working with the clients and working with the government and working on how these projects can impact our communities, that perspective as someone who wasn't technical was very important.
Awesome. That's some really good advice. And it's nice to know that we have some technical, some non-technical. So that'll be really good for our answers and definitely for our listeners. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, feel free to write them in the chat. We're happy to look at that. And so now to turn to our experts, we have two experts that are going to join our call to give us more information on internships and the process. So Caragh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, it's great to be here and great to hear from the students and to see the comments in the chat. My name is Caragh. I work for Amnesty International in Amnesty Tech, which is the tech and human rights team at Amnesty International. And I'm also a PhD student at Goldsmiths University in London, where I look at issues of technology and human rights.
Awesome. Thank you for being on the call. And what about you, Christina?
Hi, thanks everyone for having me. My name is Christina Costa. I am the founder of Christina Costa Coaching, where I provide career and leadership coaching mainly to Black and Brown students and professionals who are navigating their careers. I've actually worked in tech for the last, well, before starting my business, I was working in tech for about 14 years. I've had a variety of different roles. I will share, I am not an engineer. But I've had every non-technical role in tech. So I've worked in customer success, digital marketing, what else have I? Learning and development, recruitment, talent development, as well as sales. And my background is actually not in tech. So I have a very interesting story for you all to share of how I even got into tech, because it actually technically came from an internship that I had in college. So I'm happy to share that information with you all for all the students in here who are maybe looking to pivot or navigate, or maybe they want to have a different role in tech and don't know how to make that pivot. So really excited to be here with you all. And just so you know, a couple of the companies I've worked for in the past include Google, HubSpot, and PayPal, but I've also worked in education tech at a startup, in nonprofit tech at a startup, and also fintech. So a little bit of everything. I'm really excited to be here with you all.
Awesome. Thank you guys both for being on here and being our experts. So is there anything you want to add to the search advice? So a lot of the students mentioned their technical skills and courses that they can take, but you two both offer a different perspective as being not students yourself right now. So do you have any advice that you want to add? And I can start with Christina, because you just spoke.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So the question is, what else besides technical skills should you be looking into? Yeah. So one of my many jobs, as I mentioned, is I used to lead a career training program for job-seeking software engineers. So I've actually coached over 600 engineers. And I actually did the career side of the program. We also had a technical side. So the technical side focused on algorithms, white tree diagramming, all of that, the technical part of an interview. But what I will say, the engineers who got the most offers were not necessarily the most technical. We're not necessarily the best coders, but they were actually the ones who could communicate effectively, could show that they were team players and collaborative. They would network all the time and receive referrals. And they would be really self-starters and having their own projects, right? And so what I would tell the students in this space is, yes, technical skills are important. You definitely need to pass the technical side of an interview. But equally as important is, how are you talking about your story? How are you sharing what drives you? How do you share, what's your intrinsic motivation for wanting to do this role, right? Because an employer is not just hiring you just because you know how to code, right? They're also hiring you because they're looking at you as a potential teammate, as a potential colleague that they'll get along with, right? They're also looking at you like, do I want to spend time with this person for the next 8 hours for the next 6 months, right? So it's really about also being able to share your story, what motivates you, what gets you out of bed in the morning that has to do with this role or tech or learning or growing in your skills. What makes you a great team player, right? That's really what people are also looking for in the interview, along with your technical skills. So I would say definitely focus on that, and your personal branding. LinkedIn is key. Recruiters are on LinkedIn. I was a recruiter for Google before. We are on LinkedIn all day. We have to be. One recruiter seat costs $10,000 a seat for LinkedIn. So we are constantly on LinkedIn. So it's also, what are you sharing with their community, right? What projects are you putting out there? Do you have a portfolio on your LinkedIn profile, right? All of those kinds of things really matter.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you for that. And Caragh, if I remember correctly, you also switched fields, right? And you switched into the responsible space. So can you give advice maybe in this space to touch on that a little, about students who are switching and how they should be searching for things?
Yeah, of course. So after my undergraduate degree, I worked in management for a couple of years in both the nonprofit and the private sector as well. And then sometime in the middle of that, I read the book Algorithms of Oppression, which if you haven't read, I would really recommend. And decided that what I wanted to do was work specifically at the intersection of tech and human rights. And for me, I made the decision to do a master's degree in that exact topic area, which I realize isn't an option for everyone. And I think with that, then what I would say, if you don't have that opportunity, or if that doesn't work for you, then learning alongside your current role can be really valuable. I think There is a lot of courses on Coursera, or the Center for AI and Digital Policy run a tech policy course. So there's like a lot of opportunities to demonstrate your knowledge and your skill set while you're also working in a different role and while you're trying to work out how to pivot. Alongside that, I would also say that my first job, my current job in this responsible tech space, in my interviews and in my application, I drew a lot on the experience I had from management and thought a lot about those transferable skills and how I could bring that into a new role. And I think that's really important, to not kind of discredit the work you've done before and the experiences you've had before, because that's what I think can make you stand out against other candidates. And I just noticed one comment in the chat about giving yourself an edge if you don't yet have the technical skills. And I really think it can be from other spaces as well. What things can you bring to the role that other candidates might not be able to, especially if you have different and diverse experiences?
Awesome. Thank you so much. And also just another plug for our Responsible Tech Guide. If you are looking for more information on getting into the fields, that is released on our website at All Tech is Human. So now I want to ask you guys a little bit more about your day-to-day. So before we asked a little bit about the search and maybe how you got to the job that you are, but now I want to know a little bit more about your day-to-day and what tasks were you assigned and what tasks were you given regularly. So I'll throw it to Nat, and Nat, can you give a little day-to-day in your life of your internship?
Sure. So it was just a 2-week program, and the first week consisted of lectures, pretty much for 5 hours out of the day, spaced out, of course, but we got to hear from experts from an industry and a lot of professors. It was really awesome. And then the second week, we kind of took what we had learned during those lectures, and each were able to create an individual project based on that information. Outside of that, we did a lot of social bonding things. We had meals together, walked around the area. Yeah, it was a really great experience.
That's awesome. Sorry, I forgot to mention too, can you say what your exact job title is, just in case anyone wants to search that on LinkedIn or any other, career page?
I was just a participant in the program. It was the
Okay.
Ideas program. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. And what about you, Katie? What was your job title and what was your day-to-day looking like?
So my job title was AI developer. And what was interesting about this job is it was actually a part-time internship that I did on top of a different program that I was doing over the summer. And it was remote. And since the company is based in Tanzania in a totally different time zone on the opposite side of the world, my work days were very self-structured and self-led in terms of what time I was doing things at. And I think that it's interesting to think about, you can set up your summer like in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be just like one 9-to-5 internship or program that you're doing all day, every day. You can do a project, you can take a class, you can do what I did, which was have like the part-time internship and a different program. So my time when I was working on the Ubongo internship, it was different depending on what stage in the product lifecycle I was at. At the beginning, I was introduced to the problems that the company was having and really dug down into those problems and talked to different people from the company about that. And then eventually it kind of transitioned into ideation and then pitching to the company my solution, and then the development time, and then at the end, the deployment. So I think that my day was a lot of just like doing independent research on my computer, programming, and then having Zoom meetings to catch up with my supervisors.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Kriti, before we lost your audio a little, so can you re-explain what your job was and then also tell us a little about your day-to-day?
Yep, absolutely. So interestingly enough, I didn't exactly have an actual title for my position, because the way I got my internship was I spoke to the CEO of this nonprofit I was very interested in, and we had like a long conversation. We discussed priorities, and he was like, you know what? I want someone in public policy, and I think you'd be great for it, and let's figure it out this summer. So the core idea was I worked in public policy and I led efforts in that area. And what day-to-day looked like was I did not have a single day in the summer which looked the same for me, basically. But most days would just start off with a chat with him. I had the privilege of working with him very closely, and I would just have a chat with him, think about what our priorities were, and see where we wanted to further the nonprofit's direction. So my whole thing was making concept notes for other organizations, like the big names in AI in India who wanted to work with the nonprofit because of how big they were in the data space, and to work with on mainly on the government project that we were setting up. So it was a lot of talking to people, writing out things. I was basically kind of thrown into the deep end, and I had to interact with a lot of people in a lot of different spaces.
No such thing as a day-to-day for you. And so, Caragh, in the chat, some people are asking questions specifically about Amnesty. So is it possible to find an internship there? Are there any specific platform? And yeah, can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, of course. So all the opportunities at Amnesty are posted on the Amnesty International website. You can keep an eye on that, and also keep an eye on LinkedIn, as we'll share them there too. I will say, though, for nonprofits and smaller nonprofits in particular, I would recommend reaching out to people, having conversations. Like Kriti mentioned, kind of being able to demonstrate what you could offer to them for a summer internship. This might not always be successful, and I think it's more likely to be successful at a smaller nonprofit. But it can also help you build your network for after you graduate and kind of get to know people in the space. And it also gives you the opportunity just to learn more about what's happening and what different organizations are doing.
Thank you so much. And Christina, from a career coach perspective, what advice do you give when people are searching for jobs, looking for specific day-to-days or looking for how they can prep their day-to-days? How does it look for you, and what advice do you give?
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost, this is a scary stat, but 70% of jobs are never even posted. It's just putting that out there. So the 30% that are, everyone's fighting for those, right? And at the end of the day, people hire who they know and who they like, and that is how the world works. So what they mentioned, I forgot who just said it, but whoever mentioned about reaching out to people that work there, building those connections, having those conversations, it's really, really going to be your fastest way into any job. Because the way that it works, especially if you're trying to work at a large organization, let's say, for example, like a Google, right? Let's say, I know a lot of people in tech want to work in Google, but for example, in Google, you have tiers of candidates. So your top tier is going to be your internal first, right? They get first dibs on whatever job it is. The second tier are referrals, meaning someone within the organization has referred you to that role. The third tier are actually not applicants. It's actually sourced, meaning I found you on LinkedIn as a recruiter, which is why I was talking so much about the importance of branding, personal branding, and putting yourself out there, because you also want to attract opportunities, not always be outreaching for opportunities. And then the fourth and final bucket are applicants. And I'll tell everyone here right now, recruiters do not have time to look through 300 applications. They're probably going to look at the first 20. So your fastest way into any role, whether it's a full-time job or an internship, is going to be to build relationships within that organization with the mindset that even if they don't have a role posted that you want, that does not mean they're not hiring. And it does not mean that they would not make an exception for you, depending on your background and what you bring to the table. So for everyone in here who's like, I hate networking, I don't want to talk to people, I'm sorry, but that is going to be your fastest way into any job. And so think about it more as relationship building. Don't think about it as I'm only reaching out to you to get a job. Think about it as I want to be intentional about where I want to work. Where do I really feel alignment with? What kind of organization or impact do I want to be a part of? And how can you build relationships based on that, which I tell you will hopefully turn into an opportunity there, or at least someone in there can connect you with another recruiter in there, or maybe they may say, hey, we're not hiring anytime soon, but we know this organization similar to us that is, and I can connect you with someone there. So that would be my advice. It's really relationship building is the key.
Awesome. That's really great advice. And if you are looking to join, make more relationships, All Tech is Human does have a Slack channel that we mentioned a few times before. That's a really great opportunity to meet lots of people over lots of different places. We also have a mentorship program which connects people with tech students with people in different jobs and different spaces. Actually, a lot of different spaces, all primarily responsible tech. And we have a job board. All Tech is Human does have a job board. So if you're looking for a job or you want to look at a responsible tech job, there's a job board on TechLow. I'm sure someone will post some of these links in the comments. But yeah, All Tech is Human has lots of resources to help network. All Tech is Human is a huge network. So definitely recommend you guys join that one. Also, some things that haven't been mentioned so far that I just wanted to add in for looking for jobs, mainly if you're a graduate or have graduated or looking to switch industries, there are some listservs that are very specific that post jobs. So I come from a language background, so there's like a linguist for technology listserv. Also, all of these places that people are discussing can have LinkedIn notifications. You can set search features and notifications just so you're more aware of the jobs. And again, the All Tech is Human Slack channel is just a gold mine. So definitely recommend you join there. So I guess we should switch now to more talking about the skills. We mentioned a little hard skills versus soft skills, but let's talk about the skills you had before your internship and that you gained after your internship, because I think that's on the top of a lot of people's minds, especially when they're more nervous to apply to different jobs that might seem technical. So I'm going to start with you, Katie, because you are very technical. So what did you have before, and then what did you gain after, and then some kind of advice for students who are looking for jobs then?
Yeah, so I came in with my coding skills and my researching skills. I think a soft skill that I came in with also was just being independently motivated and like being independent enough to design my own days. And the skills that I left this internship with was the ability to work closely with a company and understand its needs, and also the experience of going through a product lifecycle from beginning to end.
Amazing. And Nat, you had more training in your internship, right? You had that in the beginning. It was a lot more taught. Were there any skills specifically taught in there that you learned from your internship, or was that more company-based or something?
I wouldn't necessarily say there were specific skills, like a specific program we learned or anything like that, but there were certain viewpoints that we were taught to employ. Something that I thought was really valuable was we did some critical walkthroughs of apps. So just learning how to look at technology from that more critical viewpoint. Also, there were, technical lectures as well as more policy-oriented or ethics-oriented lectures. So it allowed students to hone skills in whatever areas they were lacking.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Kriti, I know you mentioned you're non-technical. Are there any technical skills you wish you had going into your internship? Or are there any skills that you want to develop? Can you speak a little on that?
Yeah, no, I think for this summer, I went into it with because of my 2 years at Princeton, with very strong research and writing skills. And most importantly, the skills are just being able to meet people and have them trust me, which sounds like a very, very soft skill to have, but just I was dealing with people in other companies and organizations that were much older than I was, and I had to bridge that sort of gap between how do I make them take me more seriously and trust that I also have some level of knowledge in the field, even though I'm not at the same level of my life job cycle or whatever. So I think for this summer, I didn't think I needed as many technical skills, but I do think that having a little bit of a background of just knowing, okay, this is back propagation and this is how it works. So if you're making policy about those things, you need to know a little bit about what you're making policy about. And it just adds credibility when you're speaking to other people that you have that kind of knowledge.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And so, Kara, how did you market your skills as you switch jobs? Do you have any advice for people who are switch career, like careers or fields? Do you have any advice on students who might be currently in, one field but really want to switch into another field?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things that worked for me was a lot of the roles that I was applying for were roles that were published online. And so I was able to look through the job descriptions and go through point by point why I had the skills, just for my own preparation before the interview. And I think that was really helpful because I was able to then see the transferable skills from previous roles. So I do think that's helpful, and also just to look at what skills you might need for future roles. And then I think you can also begin to see where the gaps are. Where are your strengths, and where do you think you can find new strengths and work on new things? So I think that's really helpful when moving across different career paths, to find your strengths, but also look at the gaps and try and fill those too.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really good advice. So, Christina, from a career coach perspective, what would you give advice to someone who might not fit every job description or every bullet point on the LinkedIn post? Should people apply and try, or what should they do? Or should they only apply to things that they fully think they're qualified for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you should not apply to a role where you have all of the qualifications, because number one, you're going to be bored. You're going to do that role. You've already done all the things. There's no room to grow. So I would say if you have 40 to 50% of the qualifications, go for it, right? But what I will recommend is that, look at the role, really study the job description. This is something people do not do. They do not take the time to study the job description and look at what keywords keep popping up. What keeps popping up in that job description? Like if you keep saying like data visualization and you see it like 10 times, you should have data visualization somewhere on your resume, maybe even in your professional summary at the top, and then maybe somewhere on your LinkedIn profile, right? So really tailoring your resume to that specific role is going to help you stand out. And then, of course, getting a referral will help you even more, ensuring that you at least get an interview. Now, once you're preparing for the interview, you also have to be prepared to talk about what skills you currently are growing and developing, right? Because you may not have all of the skills, and that is okay. But if you show in your interview that you are a fast learner, you take initiative, you're a self-starter, you love learning, this particular skill set, and this is what you've been doing to learn. You're taking classes, you're doing Coursera, you're on GitHub practicing, right? If you're able to talk about all of those things, and even if you don't necessarily have all the skills yet, the person who's interviewing you is going to see, oh, wow, this person is a self-starter. They are, very responsible for their own learning. They want to grow. And this is someone I would want to bring onto my team, right? And so again, it's back to that storytelling, being able to share your background and experience, and especially in responsible tech, right? Because this is a space where whoever's hiring you also wants to know, how do you align with their mission? That's really, really important. It's not just going to be what technical skills do you have, but why do you care about this product or this mission or this impact that you're making? How are you intrinsically motivated? And that's what people remember in an interview. They're not going to remember, I have C++ and JavaScript and Python, and I can do this, and that. They're going to remember, oh, Christina's the one who told me that story about her brother who maybe was detained at the border, and that's why she's so passionate about immigration policy reform, right? That's what they're going to remember. And so just want to share that with everyone, that it's okay not to have all the skills.
Yeah, that's super important, because it can feel discouraging when you're looking at a job posting and thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I have everything, but I have some things. Should I apply or not? So I'm really happy you spoke on that. We actually have another question for you from the comments. So do you recommend reaching out to people or recruiters, on LinkedIn?
Yeah, for sure. However, I will share a few insights as to the best way to get a recruiter to respond, okay? Because when I was at Google, you can imagine how flooded my inbox was with people trying to get in touch with me. So first and foremost, in the headline, in your LinkedIn message, you want to put, interested in, and give the exact role that you're interested in. So somebody knows, why are you reaching out to me? Not just want to work at Google, right? Like don't say that. in the subject, say the role title that you're interested in. Once in the topic, so once you're in the, the message area, you want to give a little bit of your background, the most relevant experience you have for that role. And again, make sure you also include your resume in that message, because the reason I say that is a lot of times I would get messages where people are like, oh, I want to work in the cloud. Can you get me a job? And I'm like, no, that's not how this works. I'm busy. I don't have all day to look at your profile and see what role matches with it. No, it's not going to happen. So make it as easy as possible for the recruiter to be able to support you. In this subject line, what role are you interested in? The email subject, in the email content, you want to say, my name is so-and-so. This is my background. This is really relevant for this position. And I'd love a chance to connect and see if this could be a potential role for me. Put your resume in there and have everything really nice and concise. So that I don't have to go looking at your profile to see why you would be relevant for this role. You're giving that all to me up front. Not guaranteeing every recruiter will respond. What I also recommend is reaching out to multiple recruiters. Do not just reach out to one, and also reach out to someone on that team that you want to work on. Let them know, hey, really interested in joining your team. I see you've been working there for the past 3 years. I would love to just get some insights as to what your experience has been there. Do you have 30 minutes to connect? And don't forget that call to action at the bottom of the message. Do you have 30 minutes to connect in the next 2 weeks? What works for you? What is your availability, right? Because if you don't put that, then someone doesn't really need to reply. If you're just like, thank you so much, they're like, great, right? So you want to be really clear and concise with your messaging. But yes, reach out.
That's super, super helpful. Thank you so much. And great questions coming from the chat. So please keep writing us questions. We'd love to get to as many as we can. So there's actually another question from a listener asking about how to approach a nonprofit. So maybe how to approach them about potential internship opportunities, or how they could express your interest in a meaningful way. And the comments right there. Thank you so much. So I know Kriti and Caragh, you guys kind of talked about this in your answers so far. So one of you want to start, and then we can, obviously give it to everybody else. Kriti, want to go? There you go.
I can go. No, so that's pretty much exactly what I did. I found this nonprofit. I thought, oh my God, they do such cool work. I would love to contribute. And even though size-wise they were fairly small, the work that they were doing and the companies that they were working with, it's huge. Like, they were working with Google and Microsoft and Anthropic and OpenAI and like the governments. And so I was like, oh, this would be really interesting. And because they were a nonprofit, I knew that if I was able to offer my time, they would find some purpose for my time. And if I can, I'm a student at a university and I have skills and I'm giving you my time. So I kind of just went for it. And this is advice that I've gotten so often. If you just ask, sometimes people will provide. And there's never any harm in asking. The worst they will do is say, oh, we kind of don't have this space right now, but I have a friend who also has a nonprofit who's doing similar work, and I know that they're also looking for someone right now, and they'll just refer you to them. And so I just think there's never any harm in just like directly just going for it. Send a cold email. Keep the cold email short. Say, I'm very interested. Here's who I am so far. Like Christina said, call to action. Would you be free to speak for like 20 minutes? I would really appreciate any advice you could give me. And if they can't offer you anything, there's a very strong likelihood that they will, if they're impressed enough by you, that they'll refer you to someone else, and they'll be like, oh, but we don't have space for you right now, but I think someone else might.
Awesome. So just do it, as Nike said. And Caragh, do you have any advice on this as well? I know you mentioned a little bit about reaching out and how to, market yourself in the space.
Sure. I'll just build off what Kriti was saying. So before I was at Amnesty International, I was at the United Nations, and my role there, I applied for online, but I also found on Twitter who the hiring manager was and sent her a message on Twitter. And I think that was helpful because for lots of roles, like Christina was saying, there are so many applicants. Like, how do you break through the noise? And I think that was helpful in in that instance. I also think, as well as asking for a chat, you can also just ask specific questions. If you don't feel comfortable arranging a chat or you feel like they might be too busy. And I think asking those specific questions, even if you already kind of know the answer, is still helpful, because it's about building this relationship and kind of just making it so that they see your name and then they recognize it when they sift through the applications. I think that can be really helpful as well.
And I know I'm a broken record at this point, but our Slack channel, the All Tech is Human Slack channel, is really great for making these connections. And that space is just like awesome for these conversations. They're happening all the time. So definitely join in on that. Does anybody else have anything they want to mention about, breaking into the nonprofit space, or should we go to the next question? Everyone feels it's good. Oh, go ahead, Christina. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing I wanted to add to my answer about reaching out. I know a lot of people get discouraged if you don't hear back, right? If you're like, oh, I reached out to this person, they never responded, they must hate me, like they don't like me. 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. So I just want to remind everyone of that, because at Google, when I was working at Google, I just didn't have time to go through my LinkedIn messages. I was talking to 500 applicants at a time. So I just didn't have time to go through my messages. And I saw those messages months later and I'm like, oh, I feel bad I didn't get to see them. So again, 99.9% of the time, it has nothing to do with you. If it's someone you really want to get in contact with, send them another email, send them another message, give them a nudge. Hey, I haven't heard back from you. I'd really love to connect. And then the last thing I want to share with everyone, even though you're a college student, maybe you don't have the background or experience yet, that doesn't mean that you have nothing that you can't contribute. You can still contribute something of worth to that conversation. A relationship takes two. It's not just take. It's give and take, right? So even you as a young professional or a student, there are things that you can provide of value. For example, you can leave a review on somebody's LinkedIn profile. You can repost something that they posted. You can say, hey, you know what? Have you checked out this resource that maybe you didn't know about? Or you can just take their advice and write back to them, hey, I took your advice and this is what I ended up doing and look what happened, right? Even just being an active listener and providing some of your own perspective to something is valuable, right? And so I just want to remind everyone in here, even if you don't have that job title or that experience, you still have something of worth and value to provide to someone else who maybe isn't a CEO position or executive director or whatever it is, because they're not you. They don't have your lived experience. And so you can provide value. So I just want to remind people of that.
That positive and beautiful message. So we're getting towards the end of our time. So I want to ask, does anyone have any last piece of advice that maybe they didn't get to touch on yet? Maybe Nat or Katie, we haven't heard from you in a little. So do you have anything you want to say that hasn't been said? Any advice you can give or offer up to our listeners? I'll start with Nat. Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing I would say is apply to as many positions as possible, as much bandwidth as you have as a student. At some point, it kind of becomes a pure statistical game. There's so many people applying for these positions. Many times it is not personal if you're getting rejected. It's just how many times you're putting your hat in the ring. So as many times as you can do that, the better.
I love that advice. Yeah, Katie, do you have anything to add?
I think I would just add on to that it's very helpful to have a big organizational spreadsheet of all of the jobs that you've applied to. And then also if you've reached out to anyone from the company and like the last time that you spoke to them, just to keep track and making sure that you're like reaching out to people and making connections in those companies. And then also keeping track of what companies you did apply to see like if you have to check the workday to see the status of your application and that kind of thing. I think a big spreadsheet is really the best tool.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really good point too, with the Workday versus LinkedIn versus all the other places you might have been sending your materials. Yeah, Kriti, I know you did it a little bit different, but any other advice that you have for the students
Yeah, I also think just more specifically, while looking on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is very good in that it's in its search options. You can do like very specific searches. So if you want to search company, and then if you want to cross search with your own university and school, you can find out who in that company used to go to the same college as you, which can be a very which is like almost an immediate connection you can make with someone, which might be something useful. Yeah.
Completely agree. And also, it's really nice to, if you're a graduate student or in a role and you see someone else at the company that had your role before, it's a really easy place to connect, right? And say, oh, we both took this class together. That's so funny. And, how did you use your skills to get this job, or even any kind of connection? And yeah, Caragh, do you have anything else to add?
Just on Katie's point about the spreadsheets, I am also a huge spreadsheet fan. But I think as well as having tracking where you've applied, what I also find really helpful is in my role at the moment, I will just add in things that I've done and kind of what skills that I've demonstrated from that. And then when I'm applying for future roles, and I did this through previous internships, you have all the information there. And it's really helpful because you can sometimes see something on a job description and draw a blank, but you have the information on the spreadsheet. So yeah, I think it's really helpful to track both what you're applying for and what you're learning in internships as well.
Love that. Love spreadsheets. We all love the spreadsheets. And Christina, anything else you want to add here?
Yeah, so I would say, well, first and foremost, understand that your career development is not anyone else's responsibility but your own. So one piece of advice that I have for everyone in here is, first thinking about what skills do you want to grow based on either market fit, or do you see, like, for example, AI is huge right now, right? So it's probably good for you to know some of the tools in AI just to give yourself a little bit of an edge. And then the other thing I would recommend is, I know a lot of students especially focus on having the perfect resume. And I'm here to say that no one's even going to look at your resume if you don't know someone in there for the most part. So don't spend as much time perfecting your resume. AI can do that for you now. So let's not spend so much time on the resume, and let's spend more time on building those relationships, because those are the people that are going to connect you to opportunities. Those are the people that are going to say, I met so-and-so, she's great. She may not have the background we're looking for, but I think we should give her a shot. Right? Those are the people that are going to give you opportunities. Almost every role that I've gotten in tech, and I've pivoted many times, was due to a referral. My first job in tech, I actually worked in education. I was a teacher first, then I worked in higher education as a student advisor. Then I made a whole pivot in my first job in PayPal. And the reason I even got an interview for that job was because a friend of mine who I had interned with in college in a marketing internship, okay, not tech at all, ended up working at PayPal later on. We had stayed friends. We remained good. We had a good connection. And then she posted that they were hiring. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, girl, get me an interview. Hook me up. She was like, I got you. Give me your resume and I'll make sure you get an interview. I aced it. Obviously, you have to ace the interview too. I aced the interview and I was able to make that pivot from working at a university to advertising operations at PayPal. Right? So you just never know where those connections can take you. I never thought when I worked with her at the Boston Globe in Boston that would end up as a role in PayPal, right? So you just never know where those connections can take you. So they're very valuable. Nourish them.
Yeah, definitely. And adding on to that too, if you are at a university, sometimes universities have programs to help you. Like there's career centers, there's some positions that are specifically set for your university, or people recruiting for your university. So one thing that I didn't realize until very recently is how much the career center has for their students. And that helps you stand out in a numbers game, because these jobs are looking to get filled from these places. Also, just to remind you guys of some of the resources All Tech is Human has to help you with these. We did a summer live stream on informational interviewing. So if you're thinking, oh my God, I definitely need to informational interview, how do I do that? We have a whole long LinkedIn Live on just that topic that maybe someone can put in the comments. We also have the Responsible Tech Guide. So if you're curious about more educational materials on getting into responsible tech, that's on our website at alltechishuman.org. And we have that mentorship program. I think the 2025 application is open for next year. But the mentorship program is a great way to develop your schools and get one-on-one advice from people in the tech fields. But other than that, we Thank you guys all for joining us. And now I'm going to bring Steven back on, our UNet lead.
So everyone, you can see why it is that all of us at All Tech is Human are so proud of the students in our university network. If you would like to be linked in to students like those you've heard from today, to career resources, people in the profession like Caragh, career counselors like Christina, if you would like to be part of this, go to our website and take a look at the university network and join us. Thank you so much for everyone for your participation on this live stream today, especially our student presenters and our experts. Nicole, thank you so much for moderating the entire thing. And to everyone in the audience, it was great to have you as part of this. I hope you learned a lot from it. Bye now.